Hello, lovelies. Today is Sunday, February the 12th, 2023, and we are in the first spiral of Red Dragon, and we're here on day 10. So today is a very important day because day 10s in any spiral are about the manifestation. And in the first spiral that initiates, it's in its original format, which is the 10th Mayan sign, which is white dog. So white planetary dog, planetary being the word for number 10. And again, if you want to download this calendar, it has all the tones there. And I'll put the link underneath to my website. This is one that I made, and it took me through a whole journey making that. That's another thing that I highly recommend. Just to say, I have an assistant with me today. I'll show you. She is, if you can hear some background noise. This is Blurt. And she has just acquired this new cat tower. Yes, you're on camera, Blurt. She used to be called Jade when we got her, but now she's called Blurt. My partner's renamed her Blurt because that little noise that she makes. Actually, make use for those noises. So, back to day 10. So, day 10, there are 20 Mayan signs. So, we're in the middle. And if we go across, there are 13 different tones. And each one of these goes through a different process in this dynamic, but they all go through the same process around beginning at number 1, which I talk about in my other videos. And so I'm not going to go into more detail about that now. But here we are at number 10, white dog. And this is twinned with red moon, which we had yesterday. We had the gateway day yesterday. So yesterday you may have experienced something very different. Red solar moon is the first gateway point, and thereon after day 9 of every 13-day process, which begins with these dots. And if you choose, look those up as well, as they are very magical, that particular glyph, in esoteric terms, in magical terms. And so they're like the epicenter, they're like a cell, really, if you look at them as well, with a dot in the middle. They're like where we begin, where we initiate. So by the time that we get to number 10, we've gone through this first 9 days of what the Great Mother is bringing us for our cosmic connection and alignment, new coding coming in. And then we're also looking at today what actually is here, what's manifest. And white dog is, again, these two have the same planet, which is Mercury. Mercury has just gone into Aquarius. So it's a really good time to be looking at the bigger picture of our life so far and where we are. Where we are as to what's happening in our world. And how things are changing very much as well over the past couple of years. So, for example, where we're working at home, where we have different timelines. And so for me doing this video today with my assistant and needing to do it at this time. So there aren't going to be any director's cuts on my videos these days. I just go with what is wherever possible. Okay, so going back to as we go through the spiral and using this calendar, you're going up and down, doing a 20-day process. So this one began on the 3rd of February. And again, if you go on my website, flowwithjo.com, you will find lots of resources on there. If you click on the menu, there are 2 menus. And it's the one at the bottom, which has lots of details about lots of spirals. So you can cross-pollinate and look at what came before. So what came before this 260-day spiral in Aquarius was a 260-day spiral in Taurus, what was manifest. And what became before that, so that was the 19th of May, that began that 260-day. Before that was the spiral in Virgo, which began on the 1st of September 2022. 1. No, 2. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, 2022. I'll double check and put a link underneath. When I start crossing over into these at the same time, it's challenging. And so this is why I write things down on my blog. So we've got a record there of these 5-year cycles. They are basically of us going through different energetics during that period. And so again, once you start mapping and going back, you can see, yes, it will be 2021, just thinking about it, because we've just gone into 23, it will be 2021. You can see where you've been, what was happening for you back then. This is very important if you want to do this sort of work, is you do have to map it. You do need journals. You do need what I call a book of shadows. Now, what's important about today is by the time we get to the middle of this process, so at the moment we're just going in, by the time we get to the middle, we get to white cosmic dog, which is what's looking to shift. In terms of our ancestral patterns and our wounding. So this is also connected to Sirius, the Sirius star. And that's, again, Google that, because that's really connected to the Nile in Egypt as well, and what happens every year with the flood of the Nile in order to create fertility. Everything that I talk about on this video around what I understand about life is my experiential journey. And so this is very important as well. Experiential learning is very different to intellectual learning. And as a student in psychology, this has become very apparent to me in looking at what theories have been about our society and how they've been created in terms of psychology, a diagnostic manual, and then how other psychological studies have happened, especially recently online, and in terms of everything being shut down for a couple of years, people couldn't actually go out and do research with people. It did have to be online. And so that brought up a whole different set of dynamics. So basically what happens is, you know, people have theories about things and then they go and test them out. They test out their hypotheses. And often what happens in real life in these communities online is very different to what society thought about what was going on. So in other words, we don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. People often aren't very forthcoming about things. They aren't very open about their mental health, for example. It's still got a big taboo. And white dog energy is really tuning into that about what's going on in our tribe, what's going on in our family, and the group for that. Because all of these Mayan signs come with 3 other signs in their tribe, because we have 13-year cycles. And so we have a red. So in this case, this is red serpent. We have a white, which is white dog. We have a blue, which is blue monkey. And we have a yellow, which is yellow sun. So these are all about the bloodline, the family, and how we learn to relate to the world because of our culture. And I've been watching some really interesting videos about this as well, to do with neuroscience and biology, and fascinating stuff, really fascinating. So really looking at the bigger picture of all of it, of what affects us, how we come into this life. And I believe we come in and choose this life with a purpose. And if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you are of the same mindset. So we come in, we choose a family line, and then the purpose of that is to explore how this dynamic was created and how to heal a lot of that, as to why we have created so much suffering in the world because of our actions, our behaviours, our environment, how we've been influenced, how we have been taught who to be as a human being. And really, it's all made up, isn't it? Actually, when you think about it, who decides what the rules are? You know, where did they come from? There's lots of shared common ground in different cultures, with different myths, with different themes, different belief systems, different religions. And the thing is, we do actually get to choose when we wake up, when we become consciously aware of how our biology works, how all of this deeper level stuff shapes us. And we don't have to continue to suffer. We can use the tools such as emotional freedom technique to heal. And understanding all of this stuff is really, really important in order to heal it. The stuff that I talk about that's intellectual is, again, it's a big learning journey for me around astrology. I'm learning new things every day about that. And like I said about the neuroscience, I'm learning about that. But most of the things that I share come from a personal perspective of what I have learned over since 2007, really in a big way, about alternative therapies, and starting to really focus on myself and understanding myself. That's a key thing. If you don't understand yourself, how can you understand anyone else? You know, it's, you know, beginning within, because that reflects on the outside. So many people have no understanding of neuroscience. They have no understanding of how their biology shapes their belief system, or how they're in a loop of karmic patterns, family patterns. And so they're going to live their life at that level of understanding. And for me, I'm passionate about sharing these things so that people can choose to be limitless, because I believe that's who we are. We're limitless beings if we're prepared to do the learning and do the work. And it's lifelong learning, it's lifelong healing. And it's important to understand that it's way beyond just talking about your story. It's about using energy techniques, energy therapies, which are very much proven. I know people talk about science. I mean, again, what is science? How do we define that? How do we define what's truth? You know, it all boils down to belief systems, basically. So I had a giggle today because I always get directed towards things. And again, I've not fully read this article. It popped up for me last night, and I'm going to share it so you can have a look as well. Because I know I have a mixed audience. And again, if you like the video, please subscribe and click the bell, because that's the algorithm, and more people will start to look at this information. And so again, understanding how the tools that we use work, like YouTube, is important, and important to find our tribe as well. So the more that we do online things, the more that we can reach a wider audience that may be beyond our locality. So this particular thread is kairotic.com, and it talks about the astrologer's degrees in the chart, and again, how you can read your personal chart to understand more about yourself. It talks about Virgo at 11 degrees, and the moon is at 11 degrees of Virgo at the moment. So again, this is just looking at patterns, and that's what karma means. It means pattern. It doesn't mean a judgment. It doesn't mean you're stuck in something. It means, in my understanding, that we've got a particular pattern that we come in with, which is reflected in the chart, and it's reflected in the Mayan sign as well. And the more that we get to know about that, the more that we can start to really work with it. And also, we're raising our conscious awareness, and we're changing our perception. And the more that we change our perception, the more magical our life experience becomes. So when people talk about compassion, and they talk about having empathy for other people, again, once we start to understand more about neurobiology, again, if you look up about ADHD, which is very much a emotional trauma response because of the way we're living in our society. Gabor Mate is great for this, and Russell Berkley, if you haven't checked him out yet, amazing, explains from different perceptions as well. This understanding is absolutely key, because how often do we make assumptions about people and their behaviour, and don't have compassion for people because we don't have empathy, because we don't understand. And sometimes people don't have empathy, full stop, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that's the way that their brain's wired. And so instead of judging them, we can learn more about behaviour and how to create better relationships as well. And also focusing on letting go of being in abusive relationships, being in harmful relationships, being in toxic relationships. This is all essential for the people who are looking to heal themselves, looking to share these frameworks with other people, so that we can all make a shift. And again, just to tie in with that, we have universal movement today, what needs to shift. And that's why I brought up the reference of white dog in the middle. I've talked about this many times in my video before, because this is the father of my children, and I went on a huge 26-year journey with him. Nothing is random. I totally know that, and the people that I work with and how we're uncovering our shared stories together has just been mind-blowing. So I'm working with a lovely person at the moment, and the more that I work with people who are at this conscious level as well, we go to a whole different level, because we speak in the same language, we are going into different arenas, and when all these codes show up, I have no doubt that no matter how challenging this time is for all of us, because of its very nature, because we're at this flip around point of the return of the sacred feminine, we do have the answers within us. And that's Red Moon, that was yesterday. So also today, the star, this is the Aquarius energy. So emptying out our cup, and you do that with emotional freedom technique. Empty out our suffering. As we do that, we come into peace more and more. It's not about accepting the behaviour. It's just accepting that something's happened to us, and we can let it go. We can let go of being in fight or flight, in a fear response, so that we can have a different experience with other people, instead of being stuck in a karmic loop of repeating the drama. So learning how to act differently, changing our behaviour, and coming into a place of empowerment and courage, which is what the next wave spell is going to be all about in White Wizard, which is coming up in 3 days' time. So back to the here and now. And the here and now, we're in galactic moon now. We are in the 8th moon. So there are 13 moons, and the first moon begins on the 26th of July every year. So if you go back to the 26th of July, where were you? What were you doing? And what was actually present? What were you attracting into your life back then around the sacred feminine energy, showing you how to come into more authenticity and being the beacon of light? And what does that even mean? Well, like I said earlier, how do we know who we are? We've been told who we are. We've been conditioned to be a person in our community, in our family. We've got the energy in our epigenetic level, so in our genes. We've experienced the environment. Now, the more that you start to know about these areas, and yes, it is essential to know these if you really want to go deep, the more that you recognize how human beings have been shaped over the last couple of 100 years, for example, with all the empires and the slavery systems and the denial of indigenous people, denial of who they were in order for them to be conquered, and it's the same thing that's going on now. It's about conquering people's free will and making them be something that they're not in order to fit the empire regime. And again, looking up these different dynamics, they've been happening for a long time, and they've still been happening very recently as to terrible things being done to human beings that come from a very distorted place indeed. So once we start to understand that more, we recognize that we are here today, we are manifest because of lots of very complex process and our ancestors' experiences and how we are literally still living those. This is why, although we have all this technology, we have more money on the planet than there has ever been, we have all these amazing resources, we've supposedly, moved on so much, and yet how come we're still experiencing these huge lack things, these huge fear things, these beliefs that our bodies are not enough and that we need artificial chemicals, we need to be around all this technology in a very out of balance way without actually thinking any of it through. Most of the time we're just going along with things. So over the past 9 days, you will have experienced your survival issues in some way coming up. And another insight that I had about that was anybody who is in this first 13-day process, as in that's your mind sign, that's the energy that you bring to the world, and that's the experience that you're going to be having. So anybody who's in the first 13-day lineup is about awakening survival issues, awakening alignment with the Great Mother. And Neptune is the energy for that. We have a really beautiful day on the 13th day, Red Cosmic Skywalker, which is the 15th of February. So that's a great one to look out for. The day after, Valentine's Day. Really beautiful conjunction of Venus and Neptune in Pisces. So that's a day to really look at what's seeking to shift for you so that you can create heaven on earth for yourself. I remember a lot of the time we have to revisit and go through these past patterns with new eyes. This is the whole point of becoming a Mayan elder at 52, and then you get to revisit your childhood all over again with different eyes and different wisdom. And this is what being an elder is all about, is being wise and helping younger people in the community with that wisdom and hindsight, and having been around on the planet for a while, to see what has happened over a long period of time, rather than just being told some spin story from some person that's not been around on the planet. So again, it's the shadow and light in all things. So for example, one aspect of ADHD is that there are issues around working memory, which means people can walk into a room and forget what they came in for. So it's not necessarily an age thing. It can be a difficulty holding information. It can be a difficulty in having an awareness of planning something in the future and doing things, taking the small steps in order to manifest something in the future. But at the same time, the flip side to that can be that people forget what happened around arguments. They forgive easily. They wipe the slate clean. They're there to create new beginnings instantaneously. They love doing things experientially and with a child's eyes and innocence. And they're very creative and have lots of different things going on at once, like a butterfly flying from flower to flower. I think we're all on this spectrum somewhere because of what's happening in our society today, where we have access to so many devices, so many different things we can look at. And also noticing how that makes us feel as a human being, and how that can be manic, how that can be an avoidance of being still. And again, if we look at this through the perspective that these behaviours come from trauma, from a small child, of not being able to deal with an environment that they're in because maybe their parents are having financial issues. Imagine just what's gone on in a lot of people's homes when people were made to stay at home and didn't have the ability to send their children to any outside care, had to have them around when they were working, etc. That's really such an eye-opener, showing people a reality of a different dynamic, bringing everything into the same pot at once and no escape, or very little escape from it, just having to be with the reality of what that actually means, which would have been probably a similar place to most of our ancestors. in our grandparents' time, for example, how difficult it was. We're seeing the same issues and they're not actually being addressed around how to look after your children, how to bring them up. Still don't have parenting schools largely. It's quite amazing, really, when you think about it, that you just get to become a parent and, without any prior training. And often many people who are parents, they had terrible childhoods. How are they going to know how to be a good parent? It's all very hit and miss, our society, isn't it, really? It's not really thought through a lot of the time. And why is that? If we want to create a different dynamic, then these are really good questions and things that we need to be focusing on. Being solution focused, that's what the Aquarius age is. And this particular energy at the moment is about looking at solutions that we can create from a clearer space, from a conscious place. So we'll be going into Pisces on the 18th of February. And we've got the new moon coming up on the 19th. So I'll be doing my next workshop on Sunday, the 19th of February, and it will be at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I'll be doing a separate video about that, and I hope you'll join me. It's a small group. The last one was really amazing. Can't believe it, a month has gone by. It's going to be powerful because it's going to be in the White Wizard 13-day process. And of course, we'll be going into Red Solar Moon as well in this 52-day cycle. So if your sign or one of your family members or closest people was in this first 52-day dynamic, then their energy is going to be about awakening to what the Great Mother is bringing us, survival issues. And again, using this awareness really helps us drill down so we can get laser focus and illuminate our path and understand with more compassion about why we're here, why they're here, the dance that we do together, and that we are all coming into more and more light as we do this process. Everybody's involved in this. Everybody is where they are. And the more that we surrender and accept and be open to the cosmos and being free of the limitations of our past story, the more joy and magic we can create. So lots of love. Bye for now.